You spoke of the GNU being a marriage of convenience. People might say the same about the progressive caucus that you guys are in, among others with ATM and MKP. MKP, which we don't know whether they are your friends or your enemies. It depends on which side you guys wake up on. What is the progressive caucus? Is it still there, by the way?
Yeah, it exists, but we don't have any attachment as to how it is characterized. It doesn't really matter to us. You can characterize it as a marriage of convenience. You can characterize it as a failure. It is nothing more than a voting bloc at this current stage. That's how it must be defined. So we'll vote with each other as and when we deem it fit, because they claim to align with the ideas that the EFF aligns with. So when it came to the rejection of the budget, we were of the same view. We rejected it. And when it comes to a lot of matters in Parliament as well, but there's nothing ceremonial or special about how it must be characterized. We don't hold that view. Because a lot has deteriorated due to the actions of the MK party. So they have lost our faith, but we can vote together in Parliament. That's where relationship starts and ends.
So politically, this thing is just G.
No, there's nothing.
It doesn't carry any political significance. That's what I'm trying to say.
Not to the EFF.
So there is no time where you guys plot political strategy together and how you must maneuver.
You can't plot political strategy to them. The MKP doesn't add value to opposition politics. That's why we call ourselves the official opposition on merit. They don't add value to opposition politics in South Africa. They don't know what to do, what to say. And part of the reason is because they're so preoccupied with looking over their own shoulders internally as a party. No one trusts anyone. Everyone is trying to outmaneuver the other. They can't come to the table and say, we have sat and thought about the budget in this sense. We have sat and thought about what must happen with regards to this specific aspect of the fiscal framework or the division of revenue bill or the appropriations bill in this sense, because thinking requires peace and unity and cohesiveness internally in the party. And they don't have that. And that's why it's laughable that they claim to pursue unity of African people when they can't unite themselves. Because they can't unite themselves towards a program that is cohesive and recognizable and verifiable in Parliament. So why must we think we can sit down and politically strategize with people who are more worried about the knife that is going to come behind them than they are worried about the people of South Africa? All of their political programs, if you look at them, you can link them to a personal challenge confronted by Jacob Zuma. I saw now, they said there must be a lifestyle audit of judges. They forget that judges are required to declare their assets. Even their families and partners and children are required to declare their assets, by the way, by law. They forget that. But they make that statement following an address by Judge Zondo. I don't know where Zondo was addressing.
In Cape Town somewhere. I saw in Cape Town.
Yes, where Zondo says he doesn't think it was authentic. His release from prison as part of COVID release of prisoners, and that there was an executive decision of expediency, that the judiciary is proud that it was able to show that it can arrest anyone, even a president. Not even 24 hours later, the MKP suddenly wants an audit of lifestyle of judges. Their political program is centered around an individual. He was addressing a Solomon Mahlangu lecture, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. This one didn't mention Solomon Mahlangu once. He talks about himself because he wants to frame himself as someone who was subject to the treatment Robert Sobukwe was subjected to, like a Robert Sobukwe clause. And so when he addresses Freedom Day, he thinks of himself as a representation of an undermining of freedom, not of generations of people who died in 1976, in the 1980s, in the 1960s. He doesn't place historical context to historical events. He places himself as the face of historical events, even when he was not part of them. So the political program of that organization is centered around an individual. So you can't plot political strategy with people like that.
So you reckon that is their main weakness?
It's their main weakness. Even now, when it was his birthday, they spent an entire month having rallies about him, about his legacy, because they understand that they have a reputational challenge. And in order to address that reputational challenge, they are trying to erase the memory of South Africans of the past 15 years when he was in government, or they are trying to rewrite that history to represent something else. So as long as an organization is engaged in trying to rescue the legacy of an individual, it can never have a political strategy. Their political strategy is to try to sanitize the history and legacy of Jacob Zuma. There's nothing you can sit down about and plan for the betterment of South Africans. Just people who still have to fix the image of their leader first before they fix the lives of South Africans.
But in Parliament, they say they have the best caucus in terms of, well, I guess when they look at the qualifications and
the technocrats were the basis of that claim.
Yeah.
Look, they're not bad. I sit with Des van Rooyen and Brian Molefe in the Standing Committee on Finance.
Yeah.
I think they make valuable contributions, but beyond that, I don't see how far the self-proclaimed quality of that caucus has gone. And you can see they no longer make those claims anymore. They were very loud and boisterous about having former CEOs of state-owned enterprises. Mm-hmm. But now you don't see that noise about that anymore because it was just a shell of a claim. They are even now in Parliament preoccupied with defending the legacies of those individuals. So it's difficult for me to appreciate them as people you can sit down and plot political strategy with.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of what their contribution is besides these televised debates, is there anything like as you were saying, Sihle Lonzi's student debt cancellation bill, whatever? Is the MKP making any such moves about introducing bills, things that are tangible, that can be touched if they are passed, which will...
You'd have to ask them. I don't know. Yeah. I saw they tried...
They are your colleagues, man.
I saw they tried to do a motion of no confidence in the Minister of Finance. I think they came to realize that that's not possible.
Yeah,
it's only allowed for cabinet to... If you want to do a motion of confidence, it should be in the entire cabinet, and the Minister of Finance is appointed by the President. I think that's the only legislative thing they've tried to do there in terms of introduction of... And that's not even legislation, that's a motion of no confidence.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of anything. I think they were contemplating presenting a bill about expropriation
of land, where they say, unlike others who started in 1913, they want to start in 1652.
I haven't seen that materialize in any way or form. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying the Progressive Caucus started feeling and becoming like the EFF's ideas being something we must share, as if we must sit down and say, okay, you can take the EFF's proposal about nationalization of of the Reserve Bank, and then you can take this. It's like we were supposed to dish out our ideas and our legislative proposals and share them with members of the Progressive Caucus. ATM has made some legislative proposals in the past. I'm aware of that. I don't know why I'm forgetting the one regarding NGOs. I think they said something
about regulating
NGOs. Yeah. So you can see they bring value to the table because they don't exist to serve the interests of the legacy of an individual. But the Progressive Caucus with the MKP started feeling like a leeching of the EFF's ideas. So you can't sit down and say you're plotting political strategy, whereas it's an expectation to donate your expertise.
But then... Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying the Progressive Caucus started feeling and becoming like the EFF's ideas being something we must share, as if we must sit down and say, okay, you can take the EFF's proposal about nationalization of of the Reserve Bank, and then you can take this. It's like we were supposed to dish out our ideas and our legislative proposals and share them with members of the Progressive Caucus. ATM has made some legislative proposals in the past. I'm aware of that. I don't know why I'm forgetting the one regarding NGOs. I think they said something
about regulating
NGOs. Yeah. So you can see they bring value to the table because they don't exist to serve the interests of the legacy of an individual. But the Progressive Caucus with the MKP started feeling like a leeching of the EFF's ideas. So you can't sit down and say you're plotting political strategy, whereas it's an expectation to donate your expertise.
But then